Monday 22, 22, 39, 33. Anyway. Yes, perfect. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Mallabha Girivara Dhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivara Dhari. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Shri Srimati Swami Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki, Shri Shri Jagannath Subhadramai ki, Grantaraj Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki, Nittai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to Sema devotees. All glories to Sema devotees. All glories to Sema devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Guru and Shri Prabhupada. Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Grantha Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. So we're reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 22. The chapter is entitled The Process of Devotional Service. And we are reading from text 33 through to 39, where there's a purport. So 33. Krishna tamara haya yadi bale ekbar, maya banda hoite Krishna tare kore par. Translation. One is immediately freed from the clutches of Maya if he seriously and sincerely says, My dear Lord Krishna, although I have forgotten you for so many long years in this material world, today I am surrendering unto you. I am your sincere and serious servant. Please engage me in your service. It reminds me of one verse. Vitrasura, at the end of the 6th canto, towards the end of the 6th canto, Vitrasura Vitrasura 6:11. It's 6:11. It's not the end of the 6th canto, sorry. It's 6:11:27. Ritrasura says, O my Lord, my Master, I am wandering throughout this material world as a result of my fruitive activities. Therefore, I simply seek friendship in the association of your pious and enlightened devotees. My attachment to my body, wife, children, and home is continuing by the spell of your external energy, but I wish to be attached to them no longer. Let my mind, my consciousness, and everything I have be attached only to you. So this 33 just reminded me of this verse, so I think I'll refer to this a little later also, it's relevant. 34. Sakriddeva prapanno yastava smiti chayachate abhayam tas sarvada tasmai dadami etad vritam mama. It is my vow that if one only once seriously surrenders unto me, saying, My dear Lord, from this day I am yours, and prays to me for courage, I shall immediately award courage to that person, and he will always remain safe from that time on. Short purport. This verse is from Ramayana, Yuddhakand 1833, was spoken by Lord Ramachandra. Shri Shri Jagnapalda Subhadramaya ki, Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki. So actually this verse is spoken by Lord Ramachandra in the context of Vibhishan. Vibhishan is coming towards Lord Ram. Lord Ram is still in India, hasn't gone to Lanka yet, but Vibhishan is coming. They're building the bridge at this time, and everyone sees Vibhishan coming, and they think this is a brother of Ravana. He must be coming to attack for some malicious, with some malicious intent. But Vibhishan comes. Lord Ram says that let's see what happens. So Vibhishan comes, and actually he surrenders to Lord Ram. And still the devotees, Hanuman and others, they're suspicious of Vibhishan. But then Lord Ram says this verse, that if one only once seriously surrenders unto me, saying, My dear Lord, from this day I am yours, then I'll immediately award them courage, and they'll always remain safe. So this is Lord Ram's promise, Lord Krishna's promise, that once we surrender to Krishna, and they will take care. 35. Bhukti mukti siddhi kami subhuti yadi hoy, gata bhakti hu yoge tobe Krishna re bhajay. Translation. Due to bad association, the living entity desires material happiness, liberation, or merging into the impersonal aspect of the Lord, or he engages in mystic yoga for material power. If such a person actually becomes intelligent, he takes to Krishna consciousness by engaging himself in intense devotional service to Lord Sri Krishna. Akam sarvakamo va mokshakam udharadhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajita purusham param. Translation. Whether one desires everything or nothing, or whether he desires to merge into the existence of the Lord, he is intelligent only if he worships Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by rendering transcendental loving service. Purport. This is a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10. 37. Anya kami yadi kare Krishna ra bhajan, na magi teha Krishna tare dena svacharan. Translation. If those who desire material enjoyment or merging into the existence of the Absolute Truth engage in the Lord's transcendental loving service, they will immediately attain shelter at Krishna's lotus feet, although they did not ask for it. Krishna is therefore very merciful. 38. Krishna kohe ama bhoje mage vishaya sukha, amrita chadi visha mage e bara murakha. Translation. Krishna says, if one engages in my transcendental loving service, but at the same time wants the opulence of material enjoyment, he is very, very foolish. Indeed, he is just like a person who gives up ambrosia to drink poison. 39. Ami vigya e murkhe vishaya kene diba, swacharanamrita diya vishaya bulaiba. Translation. Since I am very intelligent, why should I give this fool material prosperity? Instead, I shall induce him to take the nectar of the shelter of my lotus feet and make him forget illusory material enjoyment. Please repeat. Since I am very intelligent. This is Krishna speaking. Why should I give this fool material prosperity? Instead, I shall induce him to take the nectar of the shelter of my lotus feet and make him forget illusory material enjoyment. Purport. Those who are interested in material enjoyment are known as bhuktikami. One who is interested in merging into the effulgence of Brahman or perfecting the mystic yoga system is not a devotee at all. Devotees do not have such desires. However, if a karmi, jnani or yogi somehow contacts a devotee and renders devotional service, Krishna immediately awards him love of God and gives him shelter at his lotus feet, although he may have no idea how to develop love of Krishna. If a person wants material profit from devotional service, Krishna condemns such materialistic desires. To desire material opulence while engaging in devotional service is foolish. Although the person may be foolish, Krishna, being all-intelligent, engages him in his devotional service in such a way that he gradually forgets material opulence. The point is that we should not try to exchange loving service for material prosperity. If we are actually surrendered to the lotus feet of Krishna, our only desire should be to satisfy Krishna. That is pure Krishna consciousness. Surrender means not that we demand something from the Lord, but that we completely depend on his mercy. If Krishna likes, he may keep his devotee in a poverty-stricken condition, or if he likes, he may keep him in an opulent position. The devotee should not be concerned in either case. He should simply be very serious about trying to satisfy the Lord by rendering him service. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukum Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langaite Girim Yat Kripatam Aham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. As I was reading the purport, I was thinking of my own life and how I grew up. And we worshipped Krishna at home, but and my mother told me to pray for Ananya Akhanda Bhakti, means unalloyed devotion. Ananya means no one else. Anya is someone else. Ananya means no one else. Akhand means without end, without unceasing. So, what is the verse? Sabe pumsam parodharma yutho bhakti rajokshre ahaituki apratihata. So, Ananya Akhand, ahaituki apratihata. Without motive. But I didn't quite know what that meant. And I don't think my mother really knew what it meant either in practice. She read about it in Prabhupada's books, and that's why she told me to pray like this. And so I did that every day religiously. I would stand for 5, 7, 10 minutes in front of Krishna every morning, have a little arti, and pray to him for Ananya Akhand Bhakti. And then I would pray for a good education and a good job and everything else, you know. and for myself, and then for my family, and then for my uncles and my aunts and everyone in the family, you know. So this was my 10-minute prayer. So very interesting. Krishna, I feel like Krishna took that part of the prayer. He ignored everything else and took that part of the prayer and is now trying to work on me to engage in that Ananya Akhand Bhakti, Ahaituki Pratihata Bhakti. And this is how Krishna works. This is what Prabhupada is saying here. This is what Chaitanya Charitamrita is saying. That if someone desires some material enjoyment and at the same time desires me, then Krishna, he overlooks the dirty part, the motivated part, and he takes the good. You know, Krishna practices what he preaches. You know, we always say that we should be the bee and not the fly. You know, the fly will see a huge bed of roses, but he'll find the stool and focus on that. Whereas the bee will see a garbage heap, but will find some nectar somewhere, will find a flower somewhere. So Krishna is like a bee. He sees our materially tainted heart, filled with all sorts of material desires, but he sees the essence. He takes something good and he works on that, and he increases that something good. He's very kind. He's very, very merciful, because he knows what's good for us. He knows what is for our ultimate benefit. But this is the reason why many times Hindus are very in India, Krishna's, you know, frowned upon a little. One is the rasa dance and so on. People don't understand what's actually happening here. And the second is that people are a little scared of Krishna, because Krishna's tricky. You know, others, you worship them and they'll give you what you want. It's a simple business exchange. You know, no strings attached. It's simple. Whereas with Krishna, you don't quite know what he's going to give. He may throw you a curveball in cricket. You know, they have sort of, you know, bowlers, you know, they have tricky ways of bowling a ball, and it can be in such a way that it bounces here and then comes here. You know, it's a curveball. So Krishna is tricky. He doesn't quite follow straightforward business. He doesn't give you what you want all the time. Even Prabhupada says, 1088.8, he says, Yasya ham anugrahanami harishe tadhanam shanai. He says, when Krishna has his special mercy on his devotee, when he particularly favors an individual, when he's very happy with the person, and when he has a trust in that person, then he takes everything away. Not always, but that may oftentimes be the case. He takes everything away. How is that mercy? How is that mercy? Prabhupada said that this happened in his own life. Prabhupada's plan was to become rich, to become successful, and in that way fund the Krishna consciousness movement, the Gaudiya Math, his spiritual master's organization. This was his plan. And it's a bona fide Krishna conscious plan. He wanted to perform service, but Krishna had a different idea. So at a certain point, you know, we read in Prabhupada Lilamrit, there were, you know, many aspects to the pastime. But at a certain point, everything just collapsed. And practically speaking, Prabhupada became penniless. He didn't have anything left. The business just was ruined, was finished. And then his family members also began to disrespect him. Because when a man doesn't have money, when he can't provide sufficiently for the family, then the family begin to disrespect the wife, the children. And so in that way, Prabhupada felt more and more of Krishna's mercy. This is how he saw it. Because, of course, Prabhupada is Prabhupada, but we can see this in practice, even in the life of Prabhupada. Why? So that when we see this happening in our own lives, we can also understand it in the same way. We can understand that, okay, now it's time for me to take a step back. Take a step back from this material ocean. It's very important. I visit many homes, not just here in Switzerland, but in other places too, in Hungary and in England. And one thing I always say to families and people where, especially when the kids grown up and they're married or close to getting married, I always encourage the parents to begin to take those steps back. Because the danger is, and you see this many times, that the children then get married, and what comes next is children. And the parents want to take care of the children, they want to be involved in the grandchildren and their lives and their growing up and their education and their everything. And it's just such a web. It's such a web. So there's a story from the Puranas in this regard. Once Lord Narayan said to Narad Muni, Narad Muni, I want someone to return. So go to the material realm and find one person to return to me, to return to Vaikuntha. And Narad Muni said, hey, that's easy. I thought you were going to give me something difficult to do. I mean, everyone wants to come. Look, Vaikuntha, the place where there's no anxiety. Everyone wants to be here. So yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back in a few minutes. No problem. Won't take long. So Narad Muni came to the earthly realm and he was looking around, okay, who shall I find? So he sees a young man who lives on a farm, a student, he's studying. And he says to the man, there's a free ticket to Vaikuntha, let's go. Free pass, no sadhana, nothing required, let's go. And the young man says, oh wow, okay, but I've just got some exams to do. Let me complete the exams, and when I pass, then I'll come with you, no problem. So Narad Muni said, okay, fine. So then he goes back to Vaikuntha and waits a little bit. And Lord Narayan says, so where's your person? And Narad Muni says, oh, he's just coming. He's just doing his exams. So then Narad Muni returns. And the young man's finished his exams. And he's ready for a job. He's got a few nice job offers. So Narad Muni says, okay, let's go now. Exams are done. Marks, you passed. Let's go. He says, okay, no, but I just got this job. I've got this job, so I'm gonna just, enter job. And my parents want me to get married, so I'll, let me just, get this job. Let me get married, and then I'll come. No problem. I want to go. Vaikuntha. Everyone wants to go to Vaikuntha. That's what we pray for, no? So then Narad Muni returns after a little while, and the young man has got married, and his next excuse is, oh, my wife wants kids. I need to have kids. Let me have the kids and then I'll come. And you can imagine it goes back and forth, and Narad Muni he's confused. Vaikuntha. There's a ticket to Vaikuntha. And if you have some inkling of what Vaikuntha is, then this realm and everything in this realm just seems so insignificant. So he's confused. What is this man doing? He's not a boy anymore, he's not a student anymore, he's a man. And he's experiencing material life, and he's experiencing the travails, the problems, the issues, the challenges of material life. And still, I'm giving him a free ticket and he doesn't want. So the young man, has children, and then he gets embroiled in children and investing in their upbringing and then their education. And then Narad Muni returns And he says, oh, my kids, let me just get them married. And then, oh, I want to see the grandchildren. Let me see the grandchildren and then I'll come. And then it's, oh no, but I have to invest in the grandchildren, make sure they have good samskaras, make sure they get a good education, make sure they grow up to be good young men and women. And in that way, he's 70 years old. And Narad Muni returns and he says to him, you're 70 years old now. 50 years have passed since we first met. Look at you. And this now, as I'm speaking, it reminds me of Vidura speaking to Dhritarashtra. Anda puraiva vidiro. Anda puraiva vidiro. Vishina danto mandhagni. That from the beginning you were blind, Vidura says to Dhritarashtra. Anda puraiva purva. From the beginning you were blind. Your teeth are loose. Your digestion is bad. Saraga kafam udbahan. You cough up mucus all the time. And still you're attached to this material situation. How blind are you? You're not just materially blind, but you're spiritually blind. You're a fool. And these words cut Dhritarashtra. So Narad Muni says to him, you're 70 years old now. Now are you ready to come to me? And just as he's making his excuses to Narad Muni, he's on the balcony, he loses his balance and he falls off the balcony and dies. And this is a Purana, story from the Puranas. Purana's 5,000 years old, right? So it's not just Kali Yuga. This is going on for aeons and aeons. This is the nature of the material world, the material realm. That's why it's built to capture, grab us, and embroil us. So he falls off, and what happens? He's so attached to that household. He's so attached to his children and to the grandchildren and to their protection, their safety, to their wealth and their prosperity and their everything else. He's born as a dog in the house. So Narad Muni says to him, okay, come now. Now you're in a dog's body. You know, how much enjoyment can you have as a dog? You know, you have 4 legs and walking around and puffing and panting. Come, now you come. And he says, no, 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 I cannot come. My sons, they're not careful enough. They leave the house unguarded. I have to guard the house. Any thieves come, I will be here. And I'll bark and I'll bite and I'll protect. I have to stay. And eventually the dog passes its life like this, barking, protecting. He's so attached. And then he dies. And then eventually he's born, in the next life he's born as a snake in the treasury of the same house. Where they keep the money. Yeah. And he's born as a snake. So anyone enters a treasury, anyone who's unwarranted, who's not allowed, enters a treasury, the snake will bite, protecting the wealth of the family. Narad Muni says, now it's even worse, even a lower form of life. Not even any legs, you're slithering around. Now you come, let's go to Vaikuntha. He says, no, I have to stay, protect the wealth of my family. Narad Muni says, you're useless. You are useless, you fool. So then he says to the family, he says to the sons of the man, there's a snake in your treasury. You better get it out. So the sons get a snake catcher and they kill the snake and get rid of him. And then he has the realization that my own sons have killed me. Then he has the realization that nothing is used, that, you know, some detachment comes. Some detachment is there. it's relevant. It's very relevant. We have to. Detachment is very important. We have to be. You know, if you speak to, I was speaking to some Indians on this marathon, and trying to give them the Bhagavad Gita. And there's two main points, or two main verses which people are familiar with, you know, from Indian or Sri Lankan backgrounds, I think. Two main verses that the average person is, if they're all familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, there's two main things they're familiar with. One is Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya, that Krishna says he comes, you know, millennium after millennium. And then the second thing is Karmani Evidikaraste Ma Phaleshu Kadachana. Yeah, so do your duty and don't be attached to the result. So they all know these things. But 2 verses out of 700, you know, there's so much more to the Bhagavad Gita, but they have some familiarity with this idea that, okay, you have to be, you do your duty, but in a detached way. But really practicing this detachment from the fruits of our endeavors in this world, it's very relevant. It's very, very important. We want pleasure in this world. We want happiness in this world. We want peace, and we want harmony. But those are not ingredients for Vaishnavas. This is not what a devotee is looking for. Prabhupada is very, very clear and quite strong in the purport. He's saying the point is that we should not try to exchange loving service for material prosperity. We like the pleasure part and we want to reject the pain. But as devotees, we have to accept that pleasure and pain are two sides of the same coin. There's no way to avoid the pain in this world. We have to accept it. And actually we have to embrace it. As much pleasure as we enjoy in this material world, that much, if not more, pain we will receive. The more we try to enjoy in this world, the more enjoyment we obtain for ourselves, the more pain we'll also experience. So it's dangerous to enjoy, because when you enjoy, you know what's coming. Pain. So dukkhalayam. That's what Krishna says. This is so actually more. We say in equal measures, but actually it's not equal. There's more pain in this material world. If you look at the human body, how much pleasure can it really give us? You know, how much can you eat? I was speaking to one young man during the marathon, devotee, and yeah, he was feeling sick regularly because he's just eating too much. And I was just talking to him and just saying, how much can the material body enjoy? If you try to enjoy too much, then you feel sick. So there's a limit, there's a real limit to how much pleasure this body can really consume and take. Whereas pain, you know, sort of, if you hurt your toe, it can give you pain and problems for days and weeks. Just a little toe. How much pleasure does your toe give you, the little toe? How much pleasure? You say, oh, my little toe. So much pleasure I get from my little toe. It's so wonderful. But how much pain and suffering can it give you? If you hurt it, then for days and weeks you may have to go to hospital. So the bent or the nature of the material world is more towards pain. Why has Krishna designed it that way? Because he doesn't want us to get too comfortable or too happy here. If it's a place where there's just pleasure, then we'll have no reason to look elsewhere, to look towards him. So actually a devotee, he looks for pain. In a sense, what do I mean by this? He voluntarily takes on difficulties for a higher cause. This is austerity. So this is what Rishabdev is teaching his sons in the 5th canto, 5th chapter. Tapo divyam putraki yena sattvam. He's teaching his sons, your young men, get used to the idea, train your minds, train your bodies to take on austerity, to take on some difficulty, because this gives you strength. Prabhu does martial arts, right? And there is so much training, so much physical discipline, so much mental discipline, so many austerities you have to take. But these things give you strength. It is for a higher purpose. And even the materialists who are doing it for some element of a higher purpose than just enjoying this material world and that very weak kind of sense gratification mood. And Prabhu's doing it for an even higher purpose. He's doing it to please Guru and Krishna. So as devotees we have to, and I was just reflecting that the marathon is like this. We just completed the Prabhupada marathon a couple of days ago, was our last day, and it is austerity. There is mental austerity, rude people, cold weather, snow and rain, people who really don't like us sometimes also, authorities who don't support our activities, and the pressures of distributing a lot of books, which we put on ourselves, and maybe our society and communities may put on us to some degree too. Austerities, and others too, I'm sure. But it's for a higher purpose. And the bliss that comes from, it's reverse. Materialists seek pleasure, receive some pleasure, but receive a whole lot of pain along with it. Whereas as devotees, we are ready for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada, for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna. Shishta Gnapalli Sarvadharmai ki, Shishi Gaurnitai ki. For the pleasure of Guru and Krishna, we're ready to take on difficulties, but the bliss, the reciprocation that we receive and that we gain through this, it's unrivaled. There's nothing like it, and it's something which we should all seek for. So this nature of seeking a comfortable position in this material world, Prabhupada says it's like if you have an apartment and you spend a long time decorating the apartment, cleaning it, decorating it, beautifying it, making it just like you want it, and then you stay in there for a few days. So it's the same thing. We're in this material world, we have this body, and we spend so much time. Even devotees many times, they spend so much time on the body. How long are we here? 70 years, 80 years, it may sound like a long time, but it's a flash in the pan, actually. It's a very short period of time, and time flies. I was just reflecting on 2022 and how fast it's gone. I thought 2021 was fast, and I thought 2020 was fast with COVID and everything, but somehow 2022, I don't know whether it's just me or whether it's everyone, but it's gone super fast, faster than ever. It's scary. We have to be very conscious of time. Maharaj Katvanga is the example. Prabhupada said, I think in two places, two purports in the Bhagavatam, he mentions the example of Maharaj Katvanga. He was a great king very chivalrous, and the demigods enlisted him to help them to defeat the demons. And he fought very bravely. He was very effective, and he helped the demigods to overcome the demons. So the demigods said, how shall we reward you? What can we do for you? We give you a boon, we give you a benediction. What do you want? What would you like? And of course, the demigods in the heavenly planets are surrounded by material opulence. They thought the king would ask for something on the material platform. But the king was more intelligent than that. He was a Raja Rishi. He was a sage, as well as a king. He wanted something deeper. So he said, please tell me, when will I die? How much time do I have left? So the demigods looked into their crystal ball, however they knew, but they said, you have 1 moment left. Just 1 moment. So Maharaj Khatvanga, at that moment, he just said, okay, he returned to the material realm, and he just, to the earthly realm, and he just meditated on the Lord, and in that way, he went back to Godhead. So he's very intelligent. He understood the goal of life, and used that moment that he had to think of Krishna, to put it to good use. There's a story of Damocles. Around 1,000 years ago, he was a king in England. He was a king of England. Damocles. Damocles. And he had a servant who he relied upon very much. And one day the servant asked whether he could be the king for a day, just to experience it, just to give it a try. What is it like to be the king? So much opulence, people waiting on you hand and foot, opulent food, everything is so nice. So Damocles agreed. Okay, you can be the king for a day, sure, give it a try. It's not a great experience. It's not what you think it's going to be. So the servant became the king. And he was enjoying, Has so many servants. Okay, I want this, you do that. I want this, like this, do this, go there, do this. He was ordering everyone about. And then it came to lunchtime. And there was a huge feast. So many items, the best ingredients, people serving you, and your every need is fulfilled. But then the servant come king, he looked up, and there was a sword above his head. And the sword was attached to a rope. And that rope, at the end, had a candle. And that candle was lit. And the rope was slowly, slowly burning. And he said, what's this? How am I meant to eat with this above my head and the rope burning? What is this all about? Damocles said, I just wanted you to have the real experience of what it means to be a king. When you're a king, and this is, 1,000 years ago, it's not like King Charles, who's sitting comfortable, relatively, But then he said, you can be, if you're the king, you can be assassinated at any moment. There's always a fear. Anything can happen at any time. You're never safe. So this is what it means to be a king. This is really what it means to be a king. So you're enjoying and you're thinking it's all about enjoyment. But that's not the reality. That's not real life. Yamaraj is always there. Damocles didn't say that. But that's the fact. For us, how does this relate to us? We always have to remember that Yamaraj is always there. Our time is short. Our time is short. And when you're young, then I guess it becomes more and more of a reality as one grows in age. that time is short, time goes very fast, and we have to make the most of what time we have to use our body, our minds, and our words in the service of Krishna, not focusing on how to have a comfortable position in this material world, how to enjoy, how to get some rasa from this material realm, and rather how to engage in pure devotional service to Guru and Krishna. Bhagavatam says 1.2.10, it says kamasya nendriya pritir labhu jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasam nartho yash cheha karma bhi. That the living entity never makes material enjoyment the goal of his life. He engages with the material world for self-preservation, and rather he focuses on developing transcendental knowledge and engaging in devotional service unto the Lord. And this is something we should always remember. This is something Prabhupada is reminding us of, Chaitanya Charitamrita is reminding us of, that we have to focus on not what feels good, not what we would like to do, but rather what we should do, what is beneficial and pleasurable for Guru and Krishna. And in that way, we will be taken care of. You know, there's naturally the worry of what will happen to me. But this is surrender. Let me serve Guru, let me serve Krishna, let me satisfy their senses, and in this way we will naturally be taken care of. This is faith. This is faith. Shraddha Shabde Vishwasa Kohe Sudrita Nischoy Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Kritta Hoy. Says Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 22:62. Very important verse. What is Shraddha? What is faith? Faith is defined as the firm conviction that if I perform devotional service unto Krishna, the Supreme Transcendent Lord, then everything else is taken care of. Everything else is taken care of. I don't need to worry about anything else. And this is the opulence of the devotees, that they have Krishna's promise. Kantiya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashati. He promises that he will help, protect, preserve what we have, carry what we have, and carry what we lack, and preserve what we have. Yeah, and we can put him to the test. He does. He does. And this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness, to try and live like that in our lives, to mold our lives in such a way that we can live in this way as a dependent of Krishna, not independent, but a dependent of Krishna, and feel his love, his care in our lives. I'll stop, and if there's any comments, questions, criticisms, then please. Yes.
Sorry, there's no criticism, there's appreciation, rather. You started off the class by reading previous verses, I think. There was mentioned that, Vibhishana, when he surrendered, and then how Lord Ram recited this famous verse, if somebody surrenders once, I will take care of them. But in reality, we know spiritual life, Krishna consciousness means surrender from moment to moment. This is what it actually, what is required or expected. So how come, surrender once? How to understand this?
Right. Yeah, it's a nice point. It reminded me of various discussions I've had with Christians on the streets and elsewhere, and they say, "Have you surrendered to Jesus?" And I say, "What does surrender mean?" You just have to, and some people have said to me, "You just have to say, I surrender to Jesus." I said, is it really that simple that you just say? I can say so many things. What does it mean to actually surrender? And this is a topic that I haven't had many good I've had some good conversations about this also. I don't generally talk to other religionists. I don't get into deep conversations because it doesn't go anywhere. But there have been occasions when I've got into a 5 or 10 minute discussion on these kind of topics, and I just tried to get them to think, what does it really mean to surrender? To surrender to Jesus, to surrender to Prabhupada, to surrender to Krishna, to surrender. What does it actually mean? And because you can just say it. I've said it, and therefore it's done. No, surrender is of the heart. Surrender the body, surrender the mind, surrender the words, surrender the soul. That's sannyas, body, mind, words, and then there's a jiva danda, the soul, everything, whatever. Paratmanishtam. Etam sa asthaya paratmanishtam. You surrender yourself completely to the Lord. But if you say it once and if you really mean it, then you engage in that process. From then onwards, I engage in that process of surrendering. And it's a process. And it's infinitely deep. Infinitely deep. The residents of Vrindavan are constantly surrendering to Krishna more and more and more. Their love, and that is shown by the fact that their love is increasing more and more and more. And you think, how can their love increase? And then it does. And you think, how can it become deeper, purer, even higher? Because they're always competing. Krishna's competing with his devotees. Their love increases, then Krishna increases his reciprocation. And then in reciprocation to Krishna's reciprocation, they increase their love. And then Krishna sees and his heart melts. So then he reciprocates even more. And it's a never-ending competition, if you like, of love. Because surrender is actually love. In bhakti, surrender is actually love. Surrender sounds like a dangerous word. We don't use it when we're preaching to newcomers. But actually it's all about love. How can I love you more? How can I please you more? How can I satisfy you more? Fundamentally, love is taking ourselves out of the picture and putting someone else first. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, and it's a process. And it's something which comes over time as we purify the heart, as we're able to take ourselves out of the picture more and more. Humility, they say, means not to think less of ourselves, but to think about ourselves less. And more about the service and the pleasure and the desires of Guru and Krishna. And in that way we can develop Vrindavan consciousness. Because everyone in Vrindavan is thinking and talking and weeping and rejoicing about Krishna, 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 Krishna. And that's surrender.
Thank you, very nice answer. Yeah, we're supposed to end, but from a practical level, in our day-to-day devotional service, is it correct that surrender, we can apply the surrender by whatever we do, we try to do our very best? This is my understanding, at least. How can I right now practically try to surrender more?
Yeah. You know, doing devotional service in a half-hearted way, it's painful. It's really painful. It reminds me of Krishna talks about the riven cloud. You know, you have a big cloud and then a bit of wind comes and it cuts the cloud, and there's a small cloud which is kind of just, you know, floating around. You know, in no man's land, they say. You know, no man's land is in between the two armies. You don't want to go there because both armies are shooting each other. If you're there, you'll get shot. It's a terrible situation to be in. To be practicing devotional service but not really practicing properly. And this is also what this topic is really referring to. To be, I remember Devamrita Maharaj, some years ago, he went in front of a youth group and he was laughing and he said 50% KC, 50% cool. Cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Like, you know, enjoying the world, you know? Designer wear, parties, you know, whatever it is, you know? It's not a nice position to be in. It's a painful position to be in because you're trying to enjoy and you know, hey, I'm a devotee and this isn't quite right, you know, I shouldn't really be watching this movie or I shouldn't really be eating in this restaurant or whatever it may be. And at the same time, you can't do either. You're practicing your devotional life, you're trying to chant your rounds, but the samskaras which come from your activities which, what's the word I'm looking for, which not negotiate, which compromise your devotional service, they leave samskaras, impressions on the mind, subtle and gross, and they stop you from really giving your heart in Krishna consciousness. They stop you from really practicing Krishna consciousness deeply, properly. They stop you from really hearing the holy name. They stop you from having taste and attraction towards the topics of Krishna Bhagavatam. They stop you from being respectful and interacting with devotees in the right way. They induce us to make offences in devotee circles. They take away our enthusiasm for devotional life. So, if you practice devotional service, give it your all. Give everything. Give whatever you have. And then there's real inspiration. Then there's real reciprocation. There's reciprocation everywhere. The degree to which we give, the degree to which we surrender, Krishna reciprocates. That's his promise. So if we give ourselves 20%, Krishna will give 20%. But it's nowhere near as good as 50%. And not nowhere near as good as 100%. So the more we give, the more we get. And that getting, that reciprocation from Krishna, that's the juice, that's the rasa. And that's what we're really looking for. That is real food for the soul. That is what the conditioned living entity needs in order to build up some momentum to really desire to get out of this material world. We say, go back home, back to Godhead. I want to go back home, back to Godhead. But in our heart of hearts, how much are we really, really, really desiring it? How much do I really want it? How much is that fire in my heart that I want to go back to Godhead? I want to get out of this place. And I want to serve Krishna. So one thing is getting out of this hellish material world, but the other thing is artha